Hey y'all, welcome back. Now, like I said in my last video, we're going to be covering Mastering the Grade 8 Social Studies TEKS. This book is going to be your best friend, like I said, and I wanted to use this video as a tutorial to kind of allow you to become better acquainted with this book because you'll be using it so much in the next couple of weeks. Now, I wanted to start off by saying that we're going to be going over Chapter 5, which is European Exploration and Colonization. Now, there was a couple of things, such as the essential questions and important ideas, that I wanted to kind of discuss with you and kind of look with you to figure out where those are exactly. And so I'm just going to kind of go through this book for the first chapter and kind of point out those locations and what they look like. Now, as you can already tell, we're looking at European exploration and colonization. Now, the cool thing about this is that this book actually goes in and discusses what things TEKS related that are going to be on the STAR test in this chapter. So, for example, if you're looking at History 1A, 1C, you'll notice a couple of things about major eras and events. And explaining the significance of the following dates of 1607, which is founding of Jamestown, 1620, which is the arrival of Pilgrims, and the signing of the Mayflower Compact. So if you actually read over these, and I really hope that you do, I really hope that you do, you will actually become better acquainted with what you're going to be learning about through reading this little box right here, which is the TEKS covered in Chapter 5. So, without further ado, let's actually get into this book. Now, starting right off the top, key terms and people in this chapter. This is just a couple of things that you need to become aware of. You know, for example, Jamestown, we've talked a lot about the Puritans, the Pilgrims, the Quakers, fundamental orders of Connecticut, especially with William Penn as well. So those are some key things that you need to be looking for in this chapter. Now, one of the better things about this is that it has essential questions, which are things that I discuss with you during lessons. Now, for example, we have, why did the Europeans explore the world's oceans and colonize the Americas? Basically, that question sets up your brain to be able to process as you're reading through, hopefully, the answers to that question. It is kind of like something that you read beforehand. That way you understand what you're going to be reading about and kind of looking out for those answers. So in this situation, we have 3 right off the bat. Now I'm going to flip the page. We have a couple of more of important ideas, A through J, that are pretty much just a little quick read of a couple of important ideas and items such as the Mayflower Compact and fundamental orders of Connecticut, which encouraged the growth of representative government in the colonies. So that is definitely also something that you need to pay close attention to. I would not be shy of going through and highlighting some of this information as you're reading through it. Now, you've got your big idea broken down into smaller subjects, and then even from there broken down further. So as you're reading through this, I would hope that you're taking your highlighter or your pen, pencil, and just kind of underlining and highlighting and making note of a couple of the things that are within this. Now, one thing that I will talk about more on Monday is that I'm going to be going out and finding and purchasing sticky notes for all of you. And I will be giving sticky notes to all of you in the hopes that you will use those basically throughout each page, each couple of pages, just to jot down just a quick reminder of, for example, what you found on this page. So, for example, if you found something interesting within religious enthusiasm, you could go through that, highlight it, underline it, and then throw up here at the top with your sticky note that piece of information that you deemed necessary to record. Okay. Another great thing that we need to be on the lookout for is applying what you've learned. Now, these are in ideas, basically questions that spark that review process. They break down the chapter in order to help you focus in on what you've just learned about, kind of like with the sticky notes, to help you understand, okay, these are two important ideas that we need to learn about, but also to get you thinking for further understanding. You'll notice that this book is rich in pictures and charts. So yes, there's going to be a lot of reading, but you also get to pair that up with a lot of text and images. So I think that'll be very great for y'all. Once again, we have the applying what you've learned. Again, more text, more applying what you've learned. Now, one thing that I do like is the acting as an amateur historian. Because basically what it's going to do is it's going to break apart certain things, certain text bubbles, and these are types of questions that you may or may not see on your STAR test. It might give you, for example, a quote from a specific person in history, and underneath you'll come across the questions of, for example, what was the person trying to accomplish with what they've said, or it's asking specifically here, what hardships did the first settlers in Jamestown face? So it's going to basically make you read through what they've said, make you kind of break down what they've also said, and apply what you already know to this little text bucket of information, and work through it. Once again, we have another historian. Now, when you're working through this, there will be things, for example, charts and graphs that you will have to fill out. Now, in this case, this applying what you've learned basically requires you to go back, like I said, understand what you've just read, and apply it to a question or a chart. Now, I will be expecting y'all to kind of work through this, or at least be aware of what the question's asking. That way, for example, the next day, when you come back after what you've read, we can sit down and really have a discussion on what we've been talking about, what you've been reading about, so that way you can participate in a lesson and have your ideas shared about with other people who've also read the exact same thing that you have. So once again, even more charts and graphs, more big topics broken down. Now, here at the end of the chapter, because we are pulling it to the end of the chapter, there are a couple of things that I really love. Now, for example, we have more graphic organizers. More graphic organizers. We have concept maps. Now, concept maps are great in the idea of the fact that they group every single thing that you need to learn about in one place. And it doesn't overdo it, but it breaks it down into small chunks. Now, you will still have to be very aware of certain things. So, for example, the 13 English colonies broken down into the growth of representative government. Now, it's just the idea of the government. So what we need to do is break it down further, which is Mayflower Compact and Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. Now, in this concept map, it doesn't explain exactly what that is or what this is, so it is up to you to apply what you've read through this chapter in order to put with that information so that you can better use that. And down here at the bottom, chapter study cards. Now, I know that you can have the option of cutting these out. I would rather you not, because if you cut this side out, you're cutting out the other side of the paper. So I want you to put a sticky note out to the side of where each of these chapter study cards are, because this does include a lot of great information that will be on your test material. Now, for example, if your assignment was to read this on Monday, what you're going to do is when you get to the end of the chapter, you'll notice that you've seen everything else that you've seen, but you're also going to come across kind of like a DBA or a teaching towards the star type questions that we give, like test questions, so to speak. Now, this is the review for the end of the chapter. And it is true that we will be going over this. So as you're reading, if you feel that you want to go ahead and do it, just to kind of test yourself, so to say, you can that night go through and answer this. Okay? I have no issue with you doing that. However, what I do want you to be well aware of is if you do go ahead and try to accomplish this on that Monday, for example, we're not going to really go through this until Tuesday. So the idea is that you've read through everything on Monday, and then when Tuesday comes around, we can sit down and really discuss with these questions with a group, and really go over it, understand it, so that way you can better acquaint yourself with the answers. But if you want to test yourself before then, you may do so. Just make sure you're not going to write your answers in pen. Do not circle in pen. Okay? That way, if you got the answer wrong, you can go back and change it. Okay? Now, there's a couple of other things throughout this in later chapters that I found. I'm not going to go over those just yet. I'll get to them as we go through. But if you want to go ahead just to kind of write this down in your planner, on Monday, April 10th, what I have planning for us is the early exploration and colonization. I want to start a one-pager, which is basically a concept map, so to say, but it includes pictures as well as text. So if you don't really know how to describe something, or you can't really quite remember the name of it, you can draw a picture of it to remind yourself. That way, when we come back and discuss everything as a whole group, you have it there. All right. I'll talk a little bit more about the one-pager and kind of the expectations for that when you come to class. Monday, we'll also be going over pages 41 to 58, which is what we've kind of just went through. And you'll be marking up, highlighting, posting, sticky notes all through your page, all through the readings that you've done. And then on Tuesday, April 11th, we'll come back together, we'll meet all up as a group, and we'll go over all of our findings. Okay, so it'll be like one big treasure hunt of information. All right, so once again, I really do appreciate all the hard work that you're going to be giving, and thank you.